Hey guys, today I have a lot to talk about. Today I want to talk about VA clinic care, Medicare, Tricare, self-insurance, private health insurance, and also FMP a little bit too. I want to talk about this because a lot of people are under these false assumptions, and a lot of people that live back in the U.S., the stuff that they're getting versus what we get over here are two different stories. And I want to try to pump through that a little bit. And a lot of people that live in the U.S. say, no, Steve, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And then they come over here and they realize that, yeah, it is true. You know, like we have a lot of people back home that think that you can carry your Medicare over here and your Medicare is going to work over here. Well, it will work for 6 months, but you have to pay up front and then you have to bill Medicare. So if you're going back and forth between the United States and here, then you're probably not going to have much of a problem if you're going every 6 months or whatever, because your insurance will pick you up. Some of them will. Some of the packages that they offer and stuff like that will. And I guess there's some states that offer some that will cover you over here. But again, you gotta pay up front, and you have to have that money available to you. So if it's a $20,000 thing or $30,000 thing that you're covering or whatever, you're not going to be able to cover it in most cases unless you got a lot of things on your credit card that you can rack it up in your credit card or whatever if you wanted to. But that's not a good thing to do. Let's face it. And a lot of people talk about that. I have credit cards also for emergencies as an emergency backup to both my insurance and my emergency fund. I have my third thing to go into would be my credit cards, which I would, as a last resort, I would ever use that. Okay, the first thing I want to get into is the VA clinic over here. And a lot of you guys I know are not veterans, but the majority of people that come over here are veterans. Okay, and a lot of them are under this false assumption that the VA clinic here is a VA hospital, number one. And number two, they're under the false assumption that they cover everything like they do back home for most vets. Back home, most vets can get almost anything covered to a certain amount, depending on the percentage that you're in, and depending on the hospital that you go to and the doctor that you see. But a lot of the hospitals back home will pretty much cover you for almost anything. But over here, it's a VA clinic, number one, and number two, we have something called FMP. FMP is the Foreign Medical Plan. Whatever the clinic does not cover for service connections, they will send you out to a hospital, and you can go out to these hospitals, any hospital of your choice if you want to, but there are ones that work with FMP and bill FMP directly. There used to be a few of those years back. I know they were having a hard time billing FMP, so some of the hospitals backed out. I heard that there are some more hospitals in that chain now. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It's always worth checking on, so when you come over here, check to see. I know that there's a hospital nearby me that works with Tricare. There's a lot of hospitals that work with Tricare over here. So if you are a person that has Tricare and you retired from the military, Tricare is pretty well accepted here. And it's accepted by some of the really, really good hospitals over here too. So you really want to look into that, and you can go on to the Tricare site, and that'll answer all your questions. They do have a whole bunch of Tricare hospitals over here in the Philippines that will work with you. Now, the reason why I'm talking about all this stuff is because a lot of us have a lot more than what we think for insurance and for healthcare and for backups and stuff like that than we really know. And a lot of guys think that when they get sick, they can take off and they can go to Guam or Hawaii. Well, in some cases you probably can, but then you have to check into the hospital. And if it's an emergency or something like that, you know, you have to go through a whole bunch of tests. You have to have a place to live. You might not have enough money for that. You might end up being in a shelter. A lot of the guys that are over here, let's face it, are not on the brink of poverty, but they don't have a lot of money. And then there are some guys over here that have a ton of money, can self-insure and stuff like that, and they do pretty well over here. Now, Tricare is the best thing to have over here if you retire from the military, because Tricare, they'll bill Tricare directly. Most hospitals will over here. A lot of the hospitals that are, if you go onto the Tricare site, you can find out which ones will do that. FMP, usually you got to send the bill into the Foreign Medical Plan. I believe it's in Colorado. You gotta send that to them, and then they send you the money. But it has to have all the criteria on the document that they ask for. So you have to send that, and you have to have that on there from the hospital too. So you have to have that all, tell the hospital, say, look, I want all this stuff on there because I'm going to be sending it into FMP. Otherwise, FMP won't even send you a check. And I've billed FMP for stuff before, and they said that they weren't going to pay for it. It was a small amount, so I just ate it and swallowed it. Could I have gotten paid? Yeah, but sometimes it's not worth the time and effort for small things, okay? So FMP is kind of a pain in the butt, I'll be honest with you. So if you can find a hospital that will bill FMP directly, and then you're better off, and that way you don't have to worry about it, okay? The other thing is self-insurance. A lot of guys say, well, Steve, I'm going to have $30,000 in the bank because I know they have the select plan through Pacific Cross, and it goes up to $30,000 if you get the top tier plan. The first part of the plan is like $9,000, and the next one is like $18,000, and it's like $27,000 and you get your own private room or whatever. It starts off with you're on the ward, then semi-private, and then private. It gives you, roughly $9,000 worth of coverage, $10,000 worth of coverage, in and around there somewhere. The select plan's pretty good. Because there was a guy the other day, they were talking about this on some site that I was reading on, and the guy went in and got some heart surgery, and it cost $20,000. And I was like kind of shocked by that. I was like, okay, so you can get heart surgery over here at a pretty major hospital and $20,000. Now granted, that might have been minor heart surgery. No heart surgery is really minor, but it might have been something that was a quick fix. So, but most surgeries at like St. Luke's and stuff like that are big heart surgeries are going to cost you more than that. I've heard others that have cost $50,000, okay? But it's cheaper than what it is in the United States. So that's why I say, if you're going to have self-insurance, I would say have $50,000 or more if you can. $30,000, you're pretty close. You're cutting it close, but it might be safe if you have some credit cards on the side, things like that. I do not recommend using credit cards. You do not need to go into debt in the Philippines. It's the worst place to do it. Use that as your third backup if you have to. Have some sort of insurance, like private health insurance. Again, I've talked about Pacific Cross, and Pacific Prime is the brokerage house that you go through. And I know a lot of guys say I talk too much about insurance, but this is like the key factor over here. And I did want to talk about all these things over here because be careful what you get for insurance over here. There's special cards over here that give you this low insurance for like, you can get $5,000 worth of insurance or $1,000 worth of insurance. Don't get into those. Don't. Get into a good insurance company over here. And a couple people have complained about Pacific Cross. I've actually had luck with Pacific Cross. A lot of other people have had luck with Pacific Cross. If you don't read the plan and you don't know what you're getting into, then you're going to be let down. But if you know what you're getting into, you know that some things you may have to cover, a small amount or something like that, then you'll do well. That's why you have a little bit of both. You have the kind of self-coverage, but you also have the private health insurance, Pacific Cross, or whatever other insurance you want to get. Pacific Cross pays the hospital directly in some of their plans. They pay them directly. And that's the best part, because then you don't have to worry about them holding you or whatever. Okay, so make sure you get a plan and you talk to the person. We have two people that we deal with, and we've put their names on the last video I did on this. I put them in the description, so if you want to contact either one of them, you can contact them, and then you can go from there. And I'll try to put the contact information on this one too. I'll put it in the description. Okay, but again, VA clinic here, and I'm going to do like a recap here. VA clinic here, you cannot get any major stuff done here. It's just strictly service connected. A lot of guys coming over here, they think, well, hey, Steve, I'm 100%. Guess what? I get full coverage on everything. You're going to find out that you're not. It's whatever you can get, like we're service connected for, is what they'll cover over here. And they're going to say, well, if you go in there and say, well, my eyes are bothering me or something like that, they're going to say, well, is that part of your service connection? And you say no. They're going to say, well, you have to go outside the hospital then. You can't use us. And they're very limited in the stuff that they can do at the clinic. It's not a hospital, it's a clinic. Okay, the next thing, Medicare. Again, this is the reason why I tell people a lot of the times that I would rather not have Medicare and use that towards either saving for the future or using it for a really decent type of medical plan over here, but I'd also like to save some. Like a lot of guys come over here and they're on these super low budgets, and that's why I tell people try not to come over here unless you're in a $2,000 to $3,000 range, because of the fact you should be able to save money for your 70s, because when you reach your 70s, it's going to get cost prohibitive over here unless you save some money to have good insurance. So that's why you want to have that, and you also want to have that emergency fund to fall back on, okay? TRICARE. We're going to get into TRICARE a little bit here too, as a recap kind of. TRICARE is really good over here. Go on their site, check out the hospitals. They build TRICARE directly at a lot of these hospitals. So they go right to TRICARE, and that gets covered. Same with FMP. A lot of the things with FMP, Foreign Medical Plan, they will some of the hospitals will bill directly to the FMP, but there's only a few hospitals that do that. Self-insurance. Yes, it's safe to do it if you have enough money. I would say $50,000 and above. I would say yes, do it. You also need to have some sort of emergency fund anyway, which is kind of like self-insurance anyway, on top of your Medicare, TRICARE, VA, private health insurance, all that. You still need to have an emergency fund, just because some things aren't going to get picked up, some things aren't going to be covered. You may have to use that for cash and then get reimbursed in some cases if you're using Medicare. Some cases if you're using a hospital that doesn't accept TRICARE and you have to submit it to TRICARE or FMP or any of this stuff. So that's why I want to talk all about this. The best way to go, get some cheap private health insurance. Health insurance over here from Pacific Cross, if you get the select plan, they do not give you a lot of coverage. It's not like back in the States. You can get that type of plan if you want, but you're going to pay a lot more for it. Sometimes there's deductibles, things like that, and that's why you need to have that emergency reserve. And that's why you should be putting money aside every month. You need to do that. Okay, so and get, when you come over here, lose those assumptions that everything's going to be the same over here as it is in the U.S. This is not the U.S. Keep that in mind. It's not the U.S. This is the Philippines, and it's more fun in the Philippines. You're going to find out that a lot of these things that you hear from other people are just not true. I hear a lot of things from people, but then when I go look into it or I talk to people, it's usually not true, or they misread something, or they read some guy that was telling a bunch of baloney out there that's just not true. And I just want to put that out there, and I know I'm not always right. I'm not always right. And there might be a bend in one of these things where, Medicare might cover you over here. I've heard that some states, they have some sort of coverage that you can get from Medicare or something, and it might cover you outside the country. But that's not for everybody. Medicare, for the most part, is useless over here, okay? Unless it's for like that 6-month range that you're out traveling around. You come here for 6 months, then you go back for a month, and you come back for another 6 months. Yeah, then you're probably going to have some coverage, but guess what? You got to pay out of pocket. You have to have some sort of self-insurance until you get reimbursed or whatever, or a reserve. You have to have that. And then to get into the private health insurance again, make sure you have enough. I can't stress that enough. A lot of people come over here and they say, well, Steve, I'm healthy. I've seen so many people come over here with this thing like I'm invincible. And the first thing that happens to them is they get sick within the first 3 to 4 years, 5 years or whatever. And then they go broke. They can't even go back home. They have no place to go back home. They have no money. They're kind of dead in the water. It's like you're going nowhere, and they have to start making monthly payments to the hospital or whatever. And they're kind of locked here after that, because I'm not sure if they can put a hold on you from leaving the country till you pay that bill. I'm not sure, and I wouldn't even want to check into that to find out, because the Philippines is it can be kind of wonky and it can be kind of scary sometimes, because it's possible that hospital could put a hold on you from leaving here till that bill's paid. Could it happen? I'm not sure. It's something to definitely think about, if you're coming over here and you're not going to get any insurance. So just be aware of that. I wouldn't even check into that, because I wouldn't even tell, for what reason. I want people to have all this stuff. Even if they didn't hold you or whatever, you still should have all this stuff as a safety precaution because of your health. And a lot of people say, well, Steve, when I die, I die. Well, it might be a slow death for some people. Maybe you get something like cancer or something like that, and you got like a year, and who wants to suffer? Sit in bed all day, lay in bed all day, and die a slow death when you can get treated properly and you can have that type of health care. Be careful, guys. Think it out. Use your head before you come here. That's why I wanted to do this video about all this stuff. Like I said, the VA clinic, Medicare, FMP, Tricare, self-insurance, private health insurance, all these things linked together. But the Medicare, if you don't get it, you can use that over here for your private health insurance, or you can put that money aside and have it in a bank account for when you start getting sick. Along with other types of insurance, because you are going to need some sort of insurance or Tricare, private health insurance or whatever. At the least, if you're going to get health insurance, at least make sure you have some sort of like a select plan from Pacific Cross or whatever. At least get something like that and take a look at it and read the whole policy and make sure you understand what you're getting. A lot of guys think, well, Steve, they're only giving you like $27,000, $30,000 worth of insurance. They're charging you blah, 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 this amount, whatever it is, because each age is different. I'll self-cover. Well, you get sick once. That money's gone. Okay? Now you have to wait a year for that insurance to kick in. Because when you buy that insurance, they're looking for pre-existing conditions. So they want you to wait a year. So they only cover certain things during your first year. So you want to make sure that you don't have to wait that year, because if, God forbid, something happens, they're not going to throw you on that plan right away. It doesn't work that way. And a lot of people that come over here, I don't think they put their thinking caps on sometimes, and they wait till it's too late, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, what do I do now? Now I'm screwed. Now I'm in trouble. Well, this is why we talk about this stuff so much, because it's the key to surviving over here in a safe way, and it's all about being safe when you're living in the Philippines. It's all about living near a hospital as you get older. A lot of guys say, well, I'm going out to the provinces, Steve. It's not a safe place to be for an older guy that's in his late 60s, early 70s. It really isn't, because you're not close to a hospital. Anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show, guys.